Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Round two. So we're going to do conflict resolution, and it does feel a bit surreal for me. But we're going to get this over, and I'm going to try and get this done by 4 o'clock-ish. Yeah, do our best. So we're going to do conflict resolution level 1. We have conflict resolution level 2 and level 3. Level 2, it's more breakaway techniques. So it's about if we are held, and how do we get out of that difficult situation without causing harm to ourselves or anybody else. We also have level 3, conflict resolution, which is more restraining. So because sometimes we have to restrain for whatever reason. Yeah. But level 1 is where it's more our observation, and it's more about communication. It's about us spotting things brewing, and we try to intervene before things escalate. Yeah, I know it's not always possible, but so far as is possible, we try to spot what's brewing, and if we can intervene and prevent it escalating, then that's really the aim of what we're trying to do. So the program is broken up into these 4 parts. So part 1, we're going to look at understanding conflict. Part 2, we look at some strategies for dealing with conflict. And then part 3 is about looking at the law, legislation, and the use of force. Yeah? Okay, so we start here then. What might be the consequences of not addressing challenging behavior? What likely to happen if challenging behavior isn't addressed? It could escalate. And when you say escalate, what?
As in, it could get worse by someone can get harmed.
So someone could get harmed. So the person who is challenging, they could get harmed, or they could cause harm for us or to somebody else. Yeah. So yes, it could escalate. Anything else that might happen if challenging behavior isn't addressed? Yeah. No thoughts? No.
They'll just carry on doing whatever they're
Yes, well, and people may think it's the norm. It's the norm to behave that way, and let us, as you say, let us carry on. And then also other people may see that happening and go away thinking, oh, that's what you do when you want whatever you want, and it's a learned, shared experience, and before we know it, everybody thinking, if you want it, then this is what you do in order to get it. What about consequence to the trust? What might some of the consequences be to the organization if challenging behavior isn't addressed?
Changes the work environment. It doesn't make it a nice place to work.
Yeah.
A safe place to work.
So we as staff may feel after a while that, I don't want to be here, or we try to duck away from coming in. Yeah. So that might be some of the consequences if challenging behavior isn't addressed. And somehow we had it could lead to ineffective delivery of healthcare. And again, with that, what I mean is people come in for whatever they come in for, and if say something kicks off one corner of the waiting area, what tends to happen is that we try to intervene, and maybe all of us go intervening, and in so doing, we neglect somebody who is quietly, patiently waiting, not causing any eruption, and as a result of that, they might feel neglected. They might feel they're not getting what they really came for, because all our thought and attention is focused on where the conflict is brewing. Yeah. It could also lead to increased physical injuries, psychological ill health amongst patients, staff, and service users. Yeah. So if challenging behavior isn't dealt with, then it could lead to also staff going off, also staff deciding dodging, because last week, last month, last year, we had that person, we recognize that name, and tonight before we go home, we look at the list for tomorrow, and we see that person coming, and we want to go hide and fly away, and tomorrow morning we're calling and say, boss, can't make it in because. And we try to make excuses, and it's only because that same person who maybe we dealt with sometime before, we recognize they're coming in again tomorrow, and we may decide, oh, I don't want this, mate. And we dodge and we bolt and we make up excuses as to not being there. Yeah. It could also lead to reduction in staffing due to sickness absence, low morale, and confidence. So we dodge and hide out of it. As a result of that, we have to the rest of the team who is there we have to find somebody to cover. So you are off, so somebody else gonna have to cover. So it put pressure on the team. Yeah. It could also lead to higher staff turnover, reduction in permanent staff, and greater need for temporary staff. So if challenging behavior isn't dealt with, then it could lead to higher staff turnover, reduction in permanent staff, and greater need for temporary staff. And with temporary staff, it's a greater cost, because usually when we go to agency to get the service, it's usually at a greater cost. Yeah. It could also lead to diminished reputation and negative publicity, because if word get out that at NUH this is what happened, then sooner or later, people like yourselves or our new starters may decide that, I'm not going there, mate. I'll go up the road where it's all nice and cozy and there's no all of this aggro to deal with. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you may decide, oh, I love that. I'm going to sign and I want some of that. Or would we? Would we want some of that? Or am I just fooling myself that we wouldn't want some of that?
We do.
Huh?
We want some.
You want some? I think you here. Would we?
No.
You think? No, we wouldn't want, because what I'm saying is, none of us wouldn't want to sign on knowing that we're going to get abused and be spat at or hit or punched. No, I'm saying none of us wouldn't want that. Yeah. So yeah. So diminished reputation, negative publicity, and also increased number of complaints. So other people who come in to get whatever they came for, they may start complaining because our attention is diverted from them, maybe to where conflict is brewing. Yeah. And just want to normally chip in here, where there was these two consultants about just over 20 years ago. Two consultants, they left home, just like you left home this morning. And it was a hospital in Wakefield up in Yorkshire somewhere. And they left home to do the job, and they were seeing a patient, and the patient had tattoos on. And the patient came in to have his tattoos removing. And he wasn't getting what he was hoping for. It wasn't being, it wasn't coming, it wasn't happening the way he thought it was going to happen. And as a result of that, that patient ended up stabbing both consultants, and they both lost their lives. So sometimes things brew, and 9 times out of 10, nothing happened. Sometimes it's just people just mouth off, and nothing happened. But I just think we also always need to remember that sometimes it goes much, much further than just lipping off. Yeah, that, and I mean, just before I came, I looked at an incident report, an incident that happened last week where a patient came in and was violent and aggressive to the member of staff, but the member of staff said they were under pressure, and as a result of that, they didn't do an incident report. And the patient came in over the weekend, and the same patient kicked off again, and the staff member is saying, she was sorry that she didn't complete an incident report then. Because if an incident report was done then, maybe measures could have been put in place so that if this patient is coming in again, then we would have some kind of support system in place to make that work. Yeah, but nothing was done. And I know we're all going to come under pressure. Trust me, we're going to come under, especially in this climate, at this time, there's going to be lots and lots of pressure put on the system. But we still need to, if things are happening, if we don't say things are happening, trust me, nobody knows. If I look at the incident reporting system and I look at where you work and I see 0, you don't make no report, I say, they're all right, Jack. Nothing is happening there. I don't have to worry about them. But that might not be true. It could be just that they're not putting things on. Things are happening and it's not being put on. And if I look and you are completing every TikTok, it's up. You put an incident report. I'm going to say, is there anything that we can do to help? Well, how are you managing? I'm glad, and I'm going to get involved. Or when I say not just me personally, but lots and lots of people look at the incident reporting system. And lots of people, by looking, they see what's happening trust-wide. And with the incident report system, it helps people channel resources in those areas. But if nothing is being put on the system, then people think, well, they're all right, let's put it where the action is. Yeah? So it's imperative that if things are happening, that we complete them incident report. Because without them, we're working blind. Nobody knows what's happening unless you say so. I always say it's like babies. Babies cry. That's you putting your incident report. It's a cry. Babies cry because they're hungry, because they're wet, because they're the poo, and they won't changing. They cry. That's their way of letting you know that they want your attention. So if you want attention or if you want something doing, shout. And by shouting, I mean doing that instant report. That's your way of shouting, putting the instant report. No use you go when it's all done and we moan to our colleagues and say, just to our colleagues. Nobody else hear that, mate. It's just between you and your colleague. If you want something to be done, let's shout it. Yeah. So let's look at some consequences. So next we look at understanding conflict. And here we start looking at some triggers to potential physical and verbal violence. And some of these triggers are being stressed. Unless you're being stressed, here we're thinking about our patient group now, or the family members accompanying that patient member. Just imagine the patient being stressed, being frustrated, being angry, being hurt. How might we as staff alleviate that? What might we do to alleviate our patients' stress, frustration, anger, hurt? Huh? Yeah, but it's big, bad communicate. What are we going to be communicating?
I acknowledge it. I can see you getting frustrated. This is what's happening.
Okay.
Reassure a little bit.
Yeah. I know you're new. I don't know if you're new to the NHS, or I know you're new to the NUH at least. But, huh? Yeah, I mean, what can we do to alleviate? If we recognize our patient is stressed, frustrated, angry, seeming hurt, how might we alleviate that?
Try and take them.
Huh?
Try and take them away from the situation,
Try and take them away from the situation.
if possible.
Identify the problem.
Yeah, so we want to try and find out what the problem is. Yeah? So that's part of the communication, trying to find, because we may make an assumption that whatever it may be, but until we speak to that person, it might not be what we think it is. So we need to have that dialogue going. Yeah? So we're going to communicate. What's, in your experience, what usually is the... Can we just ditch the phone for a minute, please? If we need the phone, just give me that short little time, mate, your time. Yeah? Yeah. What's usually the hot topic why patients get frustrated, angry, and hurt? Huh? Go again? Waiting time. So how might we communicate that? How might we communicate what's going on? If your patient, you recognize your patient seeming frustrated, angry, hurt, and we recognize that the waiting time, we told them they were a 2 o'clock appointment and they're still waiting at 2:45. How might we get that across?
Just be honest with the patient, and they have to understand that things aren't always going to be exactly on time.
Okay. But how are we physically going to do that? Make that happen? Speaking to them. Yeah? Is there any other way we normally communicate with our patient if we say running late?
Yeah, we sometimes have like signs up saying like clinic 1 is running 40 minutes behind, clinic 2 is 50 minutes behind.
Okay.
When people are walking in, even though they've got a 2 o'clock appointment, they can clearly see that the clinics are running behind, so that expectation that they're going to be seen at 2 o'clock
Yeah.
diminishes straight away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I was hoping that somebody would say what you say. Because the thing with that, though, relying on, say, them signs, people don't necessarily see them. You know, we have signs up, but people don't necessarily see them. So I always try to get that across, that until we make that personal contact, you know, have a dialogue with, even if we stand in, you know, go to the front and say, ladies and gentlemen, we're running late because, yeah. But until we do that, we sometimes don't communicate the message. Because you know what happens these days? People come in and they come in for the 2 o'clock appointment. They just come and take a seat, and they take a seat, and they get on the phone and heads down. And they see the time pass, and they look up, and that get them frustrated as well. Yeah. So let's not rely on just that board. Yes, that can go somewhere. And the other thing is that by putting it on that board, we're also making an assumption that they can read it. They might be visually impaired. They might not be able to read. You know, so sometimes, you know what I mean? So sometimes we need to understand our clientele and making sure that if we're communicating, that we're actually communicating to them. Yeah. Do you get?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought you was going. I thought you was asking more, that you wanted more ideas.
Yeah.
For that one.
Yeah, I want the ideas, but I'm just kind of expanding on the ideas. That yes, that we may have posters, and sometimes nowadays they have screens like tele screens and little ticker on the bottom that say running late. But that assume people can see, where people may be sitting down and looking up and they can't see here, you know, because they have visual impairment. They can hear, and they can, when they get close to you, they can recognize you, and you know what I mean. So we need to ensure that we're not just relying on one way of doing the communication. If we're running late, let's say so. I remember personally, I went to my GP, and normally when I go to my GP, I try to make my appointments as late in the day as possible. Yeah, because I'm usually at work, so I make my appointment as late in the day as possible. And this particular appointment I had, it was for 4:30. I got there about 4:20, and I electronically went, signed in, took a seat. 4:30 came. I didn't expect to be called at 4:30 because I know the system. I know how it works. That yes, you have an 4:30 appointment, but it don't mean 4:30. Oops, Loxley, you're going to be in. I know it doesn't work like that. But 4:30 came. 4:45 came. 5 o'clock came. 5:15, and I'm saying, I wonder if this flipping signing in business that I sign in is just sitting there and nobody know I'm here. So I'm just about ready to go reception to find out, am I in? Oh, Lux McPherson. And I went in and took a seat. And the first thing my doctor said to me, oh, sorry, we're running late. And I said to myself, too late. Don't you think? Or don't you agree with me? I say to myself, I didn't say it to him because, you know, I don't want to cross my doctor, you know. I just say to myself, too late. What do you think? Do you think it's unreasonable for me to say it's too late?
No, not if you start 45 minutes, not knowing anything.
No, well, yeah, you know, it's not reasonable to just have somebody waiting 45 minutes and nobody say anything. I think if somebody had said, we're running late because, let me decide, can I wait 45 minutes? Or do I need to go pick up the kids from school? Do I need to go back home to turn grandma or granddad or turn mom or dad because mom or dad is poorly in bed? You know, people make assumption that sometimes that because you turn up for your appointment, oh, you have all the time in the world. But we might not. You know, the dog might be home waiting with his lead ready for, he's accustomed to getting his walk at a particular time, and he's waiting, and you're not there, you know. Yeah, but, I mean, we laugh about it, but it's true, though, you know, when you really think about it, that we shouldn't assume that because your patient or whoever is waiting, that you do your bit, you tick your list. Who is here? Oh, dum. They're all here, so. No, that's the start of the process, mate. We need to have that dialogue, and so if we have that dialogue, then we can start reducing our patients' stresses, frustration, anger, being hurt. Being embarrassed. How might we embarrass our patients? Again, these are all about our patient, how they feel. Some of the triggers that causes people to go off on one. If they feel like they've been embarrassed, how do you think we could have embarrassed our patient group?
The way we talk to them, or what we say to them, if we disclose information they don't want to be heard, especially with people
Yeah.
or if you say it in a tone that's, you know, patronising or
Yeah. Yeah, so again, we need to be, we just need to be circumspect, be measured in how we speak. Yeah, and as you say, you go on the whoever it is, like the nurse or the receptionist, say, what's your name? And you say, what your name is? Date of birth? I don't want to know if you can tell the whole world my date of birth. First line of your address? If you want to have a conversation with me, have it with me, man. Don't have it with the whole, the whole community. It's just me and you right there, and it's like sometimes I go to the supermarket and you go to the till and they do that, and then at the end they said, oh, that will be £10.99. And I said, oh, you're telling everybody, I want some of it is me. I want my bit kept in my purse, mate. I don't want you to tell everybody behind me that, oh, he's come and he spent whatever he spent. You know what I mean? So if we're going to have that conversation, we need to be mindful how we speak, how we deliver that message. Because we might not set out to be embarrassing, but depending on how that is delivered, it could become embarrassing. And if the people that we're dealing with feel like we've embarrassed them, then there's a chance that it could kick off. And they could wanting to fight back, so to speak. Yeah. If they feel they are losing face in front of others, feeling insulted, again, it's about us ensuring that our patients don't feel like they're losing face. I know some people want to always have the last word. And if we always going to want to have the last word, then there's a strong possibility that our patients may feel like they're losing face. Because some people want to have the last word so that they're saving face. So again, it's about how we communicate that. Yeah. If they think people are laughing at them, making fun, being condescending, again, that's another trigger where people could go off on one. And sometimes in an audience, we are a small audience here. In an audience, some people see an audience, oh, I need to perform. I'm on a stage, no, I need to perform. Oh, the cameras are here, spells. I need to perform it, and I need to put on a show. And so, you see what I mean? So if we just need to be very mindful how we communicate, or else some of them triggers are going to be stimulated, and before we know it, we have conflict on our hands. Yeah? Here we look at key stages to success. They said overall success in all conflict resolution comes from 3 interdependent steps. So the first step is about how we handle ourselves. Because sometimes we ourselves could be the source of the problem. Yeah? You wake up on the wrong side. We hear that all the time. You wake up on the wrong side this morning, and as a result of that, everything in your path that day gets trash. So we need to ensure that when we turn up to perform. We used to have a slogan at the Trust a few years back where whilst we are at work, we should treat it as being on stage all the time. Whether we're at our desk, on the ward, wherever we are, we're meant to be on stage. So we just need to ensure that when we turn up with that stage hat or stage head on, and we're going to be 100% best, that we can give. Yeah. And if we can do that, I know it's not easy, because whatever is going on in our personal lives, we can't just unscrew this head that's having issues, and when we come to work, we replace it with a work head and replace it. It's not like that, but we just have to see through the mud, if you know what I mean. We just have to see through whatever is happening. If we turn up for work, then we need to ensure that we can give work 100%, or what work expect. Yeah. So effective handling of others, effective handling of ourselves, and also effective handling of others. If we can effectively manage self, then there's a good chance, there's a good possibility that we're going to start understanding. We're going to start empathizing with others. So we can empathize, and we can understand, we can effectively manage others as well. And if we can do them 2 things, manage self, manage others, then there's a good chance we can deal with whatever the problem may present. Yeah. But if we fail to manage self, then we're going to have difficulty managing others, and we ain't going to be able to deal with whatever the problem is. Yeah. We're going to in a model. We're going to be in conflict. Yeah. Has anybody experienced conflict at work, say? Yeah? You want to share? You can share. No? But how did it leave you feeling? Without even going into any details, how did it leave you feeling?
Low self-esteem.
Okay.
Kind of made me feel like this is a place that I work. I shouldn't deserve to be treated like this.
Hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one. And as I said this morning at a health and safety presentation, that I come to work. When I come, I don't come to work to be abused. I don't come to work to be spat at, to be hit or in any way. But these things happen, and work need to have a way. Work needs to have a mechanism where when we turn up, that we're going to feel like we're in that safe environment. Yeah, and I know we do so far as is reasonable, practicable. We, as an organization, I know the trusts do that. Try to shield and protect the staff that they have. But sometimes you have people who are unpredictable, and as such, they do things that is almost unimaginable what will end up. Yeah, but we just again, when stuff like that do happen, we just want to again make sure that we are being supported, that we're not being left on our own to our own devices. Yeah, and a lot of that happens. I know it doesn't happen 100% of the time, but the more we demand it, I think the more we hopefully gonna get that. Yeah. In the past, we used to have huddles. I don't know if you're familiar with huddles. No. Huddles is like a debrief, like at the end of the shift, or we come together as a team and we look at what went on shift, and we just have a little quick debrief as to what happened, how was it dealt with. Colleague may say, I noticed you did 1, 2, 3, and some of us may say, maybe if he's also done A, B, C, we could have prevented what went on. We learn lessons and we deal with it there and then, and we bin it and we can move on. Yeah. So it's. But I know with the constraint on time these days, the huddles are going by the wayside. So we're not having as much huddles as we used to have. And again, as new starter, maybe those are some of the things that you may want to be going back and asking for. Yeah. So under threat, our body has two basic responses, and I'm sure everybody familiar with the two basic responses. That's a fight or flight response. Do we understand that fight or flight response? Yeah. So we have that fight or flight response. But there's also a third response that I've discovered in my long travels. I've discovered a third response. What do you think that third response is? The fight or flight. The fight response is there's a commotion outside, and I look out. And when I look out, it's 88-year-old Mrs. Jones whacking everybody in her path with her stick, and she making a fuss out there. So my fight mode kick in, and I know Mrs. Jones. I can Mrs. Jones, and would you like a cup of tea, Mrs. Jones, and I can pacify Mrs. Jones. I can deal with that. I can calm her down. I can get her to cooperate. And that's me putting on my fight helmet on. That's as much fight as I can do. But my flight mode is that commotion outside, and when I look out, it's 28-year-old Brutus, 28 stones, sheer pure muscle Brutus, 6'6" Brutus outside there. And I say, what's your name? Claire. My flight mode, Claire, is to say, Claire, can you go deal with that one for me? That's my...
I'll put my fighting hat on.
Yeah, that's my get-out mode. I pass it on, I slope it on to somebody else to go deal with. Well, guess what? It's not so much of a coward approach I'm taking. It's because I know Brutus, that he responds more gently with females. That happens as well, So it's not just that I'm being a chicken and chickening out. It's because I know that he responds more favorably to female. Yeah, because sometimes a bloke go and it's a more challenge, and he see it more as a calming. So it's not that I'm putting you in harm's way. It's just that it's okay. That's my flight mode. But there's also that third mode, where we neither fight nor leg it. What do you think that third mode is? You haven't discovered that yet? Freezing. Doing nothing. Where things happen, and instead of doing either you're fighting or you leg it, we just freeze and do nothing. Yeah? So again, we just need to be mindful. Yes, the main reaction is that fight or flight mode, but there's also sometimes where we do nothing. Yeah, we freeze. Yeah. So in that fight or flight reaction, these are some of the things that happens. There's that rush of adrenaline to the body, heart rate increases, breathing rate increases, muscles become tense, eyes become fixed on the threat. We lose peripheral vision. There's a decrease in decision-making ability. There's a decrease in hearing. Fine, complex motor skills decrease. So these are some of what happened in that fight or flight mode. It's not like an exhaustive list. I'm sure you could add your own personal experiences as to what happened in that fight or flight mode. Yeah. Here we look at the conflict management model, and the conflict management model is one of the models that one of the strategies that we can use to get out of situations. And with the conflict management model, we have these three components. So that's a potential threat, considerations, and some options. Yeah. Potential threat. If we look at the potential threat closer, so there's within that potential threat, there's three components. So there's uncooperative, unpredictable, or cooperative. So that it is said that within all of us, we can be either of these. Yeah? So we can be either of these. We can be cooperative, we can be uncooperative, or we can be unpredictable. Which of me would you rather have? The cooperative. But, we all say that. That's why I usually hear that when I ask that question, people say the cooperative. But when things kick off, who get the attention? Who usually get the attention when things kick off? Yeah, so the person will be uncooperative. Yeah, just imagine I was sitting there, cooperative. I came in on time. I was courteous. I was asked questions. No noise. I'm keeping quiet. But somebody else, they shout to the roof and they kick over a few chairs and make a fuss. Before you know it, they're the ones who are going to get the attention. I know you want to maybe deal with the cooperative, but they're the ones who usually get the attention. Yeah, it's not what usually happens. So again, we just need to be mindful that I'm not saying we should allow the disruptive person to continue to be disruptive, but we just need to be mindful that we're not going to be training the cooperative to say, well, if you want something doing, this is what you need to do. Because sometimes people see that and think, oh, that's what you do to get the attention. If you see somebody kick off, then it might kick off the other side of the room as well. Yeah. So the potential threat could be cooperative, unpredictable, or uncooperative. And yes, we need to take whether the person is cooperative, uncooperative, or unpredictable. They need if they come to us, then they need whatever service we are here to provide for them. So we just need to find that way to get them on our side. Yeah. And then we also have some considerations, some factors to consider. So factors about ourselves we need to consider. Factors about them, the person that we're dealing with, and then factors about the environment in which we're operating in. So factors about ourselves, just imagine yourself. Tomorrow you go on your ward or wherever you're going to be working. It could be that you're new. Not that you're new to healthcare, but you're new to NUH. And as a result of that, you might have, wherever you were before, the practice might have been, we do left to right. I'm just making up an imaginary practice here. But the practice may be that you do left to right. But at NUH do the same thing that you're accustomed to doing, but we do right to left. So as a result of that, we need to learn NUH's way. Yeah. Factors relating to us as well is that we're not familiar with where everything is. We're not familiar with all the systems and processes that NUH have in place. So again, that could impact how we react to somebody as well. Because that first day, whoever we're going to be seeing, we ain't got no P badge. Like when you pass the driving test, we get that P. I see some people put the P on the cars. No, we don't get that P badge. When you go on the wards or wherever you're going to be working tomorrow or next week or later this week, you ain't got no P badge. So as far as the patients are concerned, when they turn up for whatever they turn up for, you're the nurse, you're the doctor. If they turn up, they expect whatever from you because there's no P badge. Yeah. So yes, we may be new and we can't say, oh, I'm new. I'm just, right away that doubt is sown and you get, yeah. So we need to factors about ourselves. Also factors about them. What factor might influence how we treat whoever it is that we're dealing with? Male, female, does that make any difference? Yeah? How so?
Like you were saying, the big man who's threatening might react better to a female, so.
Or not.
If it's things like that that are known.
Yeah. Old lady, younger person, does that play any part?
Yeah, it's the same.
Huh?
It's the same as the man and the woman. Older people with younger people.
Yeah.
There is discrimination there as well as there is with genders.
Okay. Because I as I said, I look at the incident reports and staff who work in HCOP, healthcare for the elderly. They tell you that you get a good working in that environment as well. So don't go believing that because you're working with the elderly that it's all gentle old ladies and gentlemen and there's nothing to worry about here. People do get good, yeah. So just have your antennas up and ready. Once you get in that environment, you make sure your antennas is ready because it comes from anywhere. Yeah. So the people, ourselves impact how things are done, how we behave, depending on our experiences, depending on our gender, we react. Yeah. And the same thing with whoever it is that we're going to be dealing with, who we're going to deal with. It also influences how we react, how we behave. Yeah. And then the environment in which we're operating in. If it's say in an open environment like this, as I said earlier, some people that we're dealing with are more likely to put on a show if they're in an open environment. Maybe if they're in a side room, one-to-one, the show might be different. It's just one-to-one now, and there might not be that audience for them to perform to, and it may be a different reaction in that kind of environment. So the environment in which we are impacts some of the consideration. Yeah, is it a small side room or is it in an open ward setting that we doing whatever it is that we're doing? Yeah, and then some options. We have some options. So verbal and non-verbal communication. So again, it comes back down to communicating. So we communicate with them verbally and non-verbally. We're going to look at some non-verbal communication strategy later. Self-control skills. So if they're being aggressive, then there's self-control skills that we could deploy. I mean, I know maybe you might not be in touch with the self-control skills, but we have some self-control skills, and that's normally in that breakaway technique, self-control skills. But that's for another session. And then exits. Being aware of our exits, being aware of our way out. We don't want to be going in and getting trapped, getting that door closed behind us and there's no way out. Yeah, making sure that we know our way out. Is there any support? Is there any assistance available? If I shouted, would somebody come to my aid? Yeah. Security. thing with security, I was going to say problem, but I don't think it's a problem. The situation with security is that security is a very finite resource that we have, and sometimes we may call for security. And as you can imagine, it's a big campus. City campus versus QMC campus, big, massive place. And you may call for security, but guess what? Security is dealing with a big something kick off somewhere else. And they go deal with that. And we may call for security, and security is not forthcoming. You know, they might not. You might be waiting and waiting for security to turn up, and nobody is turning up. But the police is always an option. I know sometimes staff seem reluctant to get the police involved, but if we feel under threat and it's we can't deal with it, and there's no security, then the police is always an option that we could resort to. Yeah, the police are our resource, just like any other members of the public out there. So if we are under threat and it's we're not getting any response from our internal security, then the police is always an option. I know sometimes the police are reluctant to run because, as far in their heads, NUH have their own security in place. But I always say, if you feel threatened and it's not happening for you, your security response is not happening, the police is always an option. Yeah. So these are just some the conflict management model in a nutshell. So it's about the threat, some consideration, and then the options that we have. Yeah. Next, we look at some potential warning signs, and some of these potential warning signs, most people are going to be familiar with. Direct, prolonged eye contact. Facial color may darken. Head goes back. Subject stands tall. Subject kicks the ground. Who else kicks the ground as a warning sign? Who? Bull. Yeah, bull is normally. I remember the old days, the cartoon, the bulls really kicking the ground and winding up to charge. Yeah, and people, let's say people behave that way as well. If we observe people close enough, people, they're ready, getting ready to charge. So subject kicks the ground as a warning sign. Large movement of hands and arms close to victim. Breathing rate accelerate. Subject may abruptly start or stop the behavior. So depending on what's happening, they abruptly start or stop the behavior. Yeah, so some potential warning signs. And then if we fail to spot the warning sign, there's a possibility that it could escalate into danger signs. Yeah, so some potential danger sign. Fist clenching and unclenching. Facial color may pale. You remember the warning sign that it was that facial color darkened, but no, facial color pale, in that all the blood is gone elsewhere to working muscle group. Lips tighten over teeth as another danger sign. Head drops, protect the throat. The boxers drop the head, protect the vulnerable throat area. Eyebrows drop, protect the eyes. Hands move up above the waist. Shoulders tense. Stance move from being square to now being side on, giving a smaller target to aim for. Yeah? And if we can spot these, it's a good time for us to be mindful of our exits. How do we get out? Because if it reached to this danger stage, then we should be looking up for a way out of this. Yeah. So there's some warning, and these are not an exhaustive list. This is just some of what we have readily available. Yeah. So some precursors to challenging behavior. So delusions or hallucinations, verbal threats and gestures, verbalizing intention that suggests distress, reporting anger or violent feelings, excessive crying or hysterical laughter. Again, it's excessive crying not because they're in pain or sad, but it's just one of the manifestations that we need to be mindful of, yeah, as a precursor for challenging behavior, that people may seem to shed tear, or people may laugh. Again, not because anything is so funny, but just one of them manifestation where some people do, and if you recognize that, then again it's a chance for you to go somewhere safe. Yeah. So excessive crying, hysterical laughter, tense, angry facial expression, increased prolonged restlessness, pacing, body tension, increased breathing, muscle twitching, dilated pupils, increased volume of speech and swearing, refusal to communicate, withdrawal and irritability, prolonged eye contact, confusion of thought processes, and poor concentration. Yeah. So some precursors to challenging behaviors. These are some of the things. If we can spot these happening, then it's an opportunity for us to get in and maybe diffuse what's brewing. Yeah. Start having that dialogue going. Start having that communication. Because if these are happening, then it's coming, unless some kind of intervention. Yeah. So some strategies for dealing with conflict, confrontation, and challenging and difficult behavior. Here we start looking at some components of communication. And they say in communicating, there's three main components. So there's a verbal component, there's a tone of voice, and then there's also the non-verbal communication. So in your communication, well, most people, if not everybody here, had an interview, I would say, within the last 6 months. Yeah? Is that fair? Yeah? And then they normally say interviews are normally the mecca for communication. Yeah? So when you were preparing for your interview, which bit of the components did you invest most of your energies?
The words I was going to say.
So the words, so it's the verbal content. Yeah? Anybody else? I know it's a long day, but you need to keep me awake because I want to sleep as well. If you sleep, I go to sleep as well, man. Which bit of the communication, which component did you invest your time when you did your interview, say? I hear you say the verbal bit, yeah?
All of them.
Yes, we know it's all of them, but I'm saying, which bit did you give a bit more movement? To get where you're here, that means you must have done the business to get here.
Tone of voice.
Huh?
Tone of voice.
Tone of voice. So you thought about the tone in which you're going to present what you say. Yeah? I go supermarket shopping. Well, nowadays, it's not normal anymore. But I used to go on a Friday, yeah? And I go supermarket shopping. And when I go supermarket shopping, I'm just going to use this little scenario to just illustrate communicating, yeah? And I come across mums or dads with little toddlers, yeah? Last time I saw them 2 weeks ago, that little one was in the trolley. They didn't find legs yet. They were up here sitting and not having legs yet. But guess what? This time, 2 weeks later, I see them, and little Johnny or little Mary, they find legs. And guess what? When they look at the supermarket, they could be they would be flipping bored now because there's nothing on the shelves to entertain them. But when they looked at the shelves, there was lots of fancy, crispy stuff, and they, wow! And little Johnny or little Mary, I see them pick stuff up and putting in the trolley. And mums and dad saying, no. And mums and dad putting stuff back. And I go up and down the aisle, and every now and again I come across the family, the little Johnny or little Mary, they're putting stuff in the basket, and I hear mum or dad saying, no. And mum or dad putting stuff back. I get to the checkout, and they are ahead of me at the checkout. And guess what? Almost all the stuff that they were saying no to little Johnny or Mary is being checked out. Guess what? It's the communication. It's the communication. Mom or dad was saying no, but mom or dad was saying no in that lovely voice. Come on, little Johnny. No, and little Johnny, maybe 2 or less year old, but he reads that language that mom or dad say that no, and know that it's all right. I can have it. Because mom and dad not being firm and making a face. Mom and dad is smiling. Oh, no, Johnny, you can't have that. But so little Johnny keep putting stuff in and mom and dad. But that no, guess who that no was for? It was for me. I mean, not just me personally, but other people walking in the supermarket. Mom or dad showing off that look who's in charge, I'm in charge. But we all know that you're not flipping in charge. It's little Johnny, because whatever they want, they get. So that's what they're accustomed to. So mom or dad is saying, verbalizing no, but in that soft, nice tone, which is sending mixed messages to little Johnny or little Mary. And there's no non-verbal firmness in that voice. Yeah? And they're being checked out. And the reason for this is that the verbal content, let's say in communicating, it's only 7% of the communication. Yeah? So what we say is only 7% of the communication that's being delivered. The tone of voice is another 38%. So in that tone in which we say what we have to say represent another 38%. So that even have more power. Mom or dad was saying no, but it's only 7%. A little Johnny or little Mary, they hear that no and say, oh, that no in that tone, nah, that means something else, mate. And and then the non-verbal expression, as you can see, it's the rest of it. So the non-verbal expression is the bulk of the communication. The non-verbal bit, like for your interview, I suppose, is how you dress. Did we do any prep for how we dress? Do we still have the interview suit? No? And that make sure that you have your good shoe on, and wearing that ripped jeans or that's all. No, but that's part of the non-verbal communication. Did we go to the hairdressers or the barbers, the weekend before? Or, you know what I mean? Those are all part of the non-verbal expression. I mean, a lot of people say, you go in and you look them in the eye. You make sure whoever's doing that interview, you look them in the eye. You give them a good, strong handshake. That's all part of the communicating. Or didn't we do that? Didn't we do that? Yeah? Work with me, man. Did we not do any of that?
Yeah, we did.
Give them the look in the eye, and strong handshake, and yeah. So, but the purpose of this is in communicating. We don't want to be giving mixed messages. If we're delivering whatever message, we need to ensure that it's backed up by the appropriate words, it's backed up by the appropriate tone of voice, and also backed up by the appropriate body language. Just imagine grandma or granddad waiting outside maternity because their Stephen is having a baby, yeah? And the nurse comes out and that face is down here, so. And without saying a word, can you imagine what message that is saying to that grandma or granddad? While on the flip side of that, if that nurse came out with a beaming smile and ooh, granddad or grandma just want to know what sex is it, boy or girl? Because that beaming smile without a word being spoken deliver most of that message already. Yeah. So it's about making sure that we back up what we're saying, verbalizing with the appropriate tone of voice and the appropriate body language. And then on the flip side of that, it could be like now, people are getting poorly, people are dying. You don't want to be going out with that beaming smile and say, Mrs. Jones. And you go deliver that death message, and with that nice beaming smile, it's not marrying up. So if we're communicating, we need to make sure that we marry up tone of voice, the words that we're saying, with the appropriate body language. Yeah. So that's some look at your components of communication. Some communication strategies, talking and listening strategies. Here we start thinking about engaging, having a conversation, converse. I mentioned going to my GP. I remember going to my GP, and you go to your GP and you get to sit down, and he said, "Oh, what bring you here today?" And I remember this particular time I went to the GP, and he said, "Go through the same motion. Oh, what bring you here today?" And I'm starting to tell him, and he's not looked in my eyes to see if it's blue, gray, or all white. He was busy. If you're talking to me, mate, you need to down tool and let we have a conversation. So engaging, be engaging. Find out who are we dealing with, and then we start having that conversation. Look them in the eye and having that conversation. Yeah. Empathize. Show empathy. Not sympathy now. It's empathy. Yeah, we're going to try and show some empathy. Listen. Would you consider yourselves good listeners? Or do we normally just hear what we want to hear? My experience is that we tend to hear what we want to hear. I don't know about you. What do you think? What's your specialty? Pediatrics. So if I came along with my little Johnny and I start talking to you about an ingrown toenail I have, you're going to say, what's that got to do with me? Or would you? I mean, you wouldn't say it maybe low verbally. You wouldn't verbalize it. But deep down you're going to say, what's that got to do with me? Yeah? Wouldn't that what happen?
Inside, yeah.
Yeah, inside. But sometimes we need to hear that conversation, because sometimes in hearing that conversation, it can help us deal with whatever the situation is at hand. Because by having that conversation, we can get to know what's going on. Yeah, it might not be seemingly related to our specialty or our discipline, but we need to have that. We need to hear that story. Yeah, because without hearing that story, we might miss a trick. Yeah. So listen, offer reassurance, show some understanding, clarify situation. You know, let people understand what we can, what we can't do, how we're going to do what we're going to do. Ask questions. Again, allow questions to be asked yourselves. Be transparent. So we don't want things to be seen to be hiding anything. Collaborate. I'll do this for you if you will do this for me. Yeah. Talk things through. Avoid confrontation as best we can. Try to diffuse situation. Promises. Do we do promises, or do you do promises? No? Why no?
Because if you can't deliver on them, then it could be like,
But what if you can?
yeah, but then that's a good thing, isn't it?
Huh?
Well, then that's a bonus.
Okay. I always think if I know it's something that I can deliver, I'll promise. I wouldn't want to go promising that I'll do whatever for you, but whatever I'm promising, depending on you doing a bit, depending on you doing another bit, and then I'm going to get them together and make it happen. I wouldn't want to be making any such promises because I don't know what's going on for yourself. You know what I mean? If I know it's something I can 100% deliver, I don't see no reason why but you're still saying no.
I don't agree with you.
Huh?
I don't agree with you.
No?
No.
There's no guarantees in
Because there's no
medicine.
guarantee in anything. Yeah.
There's no guarantees in medicine, so very few of us can
Yeah.
promise our patients anything.
But sometimes the promise is not to do in medicine. The promise might not be to, although they come to us as a hospital, but the promise that we're going to be making is not to do in medicine. It's not that I'm asking you to promise that I'm going to get you better, I'm going to get you well. It's just a promise, just in general speak. But yeah, I understand about the medicine promise that I wouldn't expect you to be promising that I'm going to make the legless walk again. I wouldn't expect you to be doing that kind of promise. But I think you wanted to.
I was just going to say that the conversation before, the two ladies that it was in was telling us about not making promises because conversations can change very quickly with patients. We can't be seen to be promising that the patient then to turn around and have our trust to then say, well, actually,
Yeah.
my uncle, my dad, or whatever is doing X, Y, and Z. So I think that's why a lot of us are like,
Yeah.
don't do promises.
Yeah, and I get that. And I wouldn't want you to, as I said, I wouldn't want you to be making that clinical promise, But there are other promises. I can get you a cup of tea, not to do with medicine, but it can go a long way in calming a situation. Yeah. So I get and I know that's the kind of as a head we have on today, in that you're a clinician and you're thinking on that clinical line, and I wouldn't expect you to be promising, you're gonna, make it better when maybe you can't. I just say things change, But do you get the level of promise I'm proposing here then? Yeah. Okay. So promises. So promises is one that I can see we're going to stay far from. Yeah. So we're not going to make promises. Yeah. Also, inquire what's going on. How can I help? What can I do? What can I do for you? Yeah, and these are all some communication strategy. And then reinforce. We can reinforce what we say we're going to do, how we say we're going to do it, who's going to do it, when we expect it to happen. You know, having that conversation and then reinforce it at the end with what the plan is going forward. Yeah. So the art of influencing others, it says, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. I mean, they speak for themselves. If we start criticizing, condemn, or complaining, then we're going to be on the wrong side. Yeah, we're going to lose any influence. Talk in terms of interests and needs. If we can talk to people in terms of interests and needs, then again, it starts breaking the ice. It starts making them like us. It's like we are, you know, we do the same thing. We're thinking about the same. We can talk about, oh, the Olympics not going ahead in July anymore. And if we can have that conversation, if that person can have that conversation with us about the Olympics, then right away we're on to a winner. We can talk about the thing that, as British, you know, we talk about every day, the weather. Oh, it's nice and sunny today. And we are in this, you know, we are, yeah. And we're missing all the sun outside. Yeah, we can have that conversation. We can talk about the other day it was raining, cats and dogs, not stop, as if it wasn't going to stop raining. We can talk about the rain. You know, the rain doesn't seem to be any stop to this rain. Yeah, so if we can talk about interest, if we can engage them in something else outside of what they're here for, again, we can start influencing. Begin in a friendly way. Be a good listener. Get the other person saying yes. If we can get people to agree to something, then again, it means that we are winning. Yeah, we have some influence here. Ask questions, make suggestions, avoid giving direct orders and using authority. If it's one thing people hate, is that giving orders and using authority, because backs go up and people are ready for a fight. Yeah, but we need to ensure that we are in control without giving that orders and using authority. Yeah. Let the other person save face. If we can allow people to save face, if we can allow them to walk away feeling that, then we've done that. We've allowed that to happen, and that's another good way of influencing. Well, I know sometimes we want to always have that last word, and so we're not going to allow face saving to happen. Yeah. Here we start to look at the infinite communication model. So the infinite communication model looks at your state, your behavior. I mean, we were talking earlier about things happening in our lives outside of work, say. You turn up for work, your head is somewhere else, something else is happening. It impacts how we behave if it's not controlled. Yeah. So again, as I said, and if we are in a bad way, head-wise, then our behavior might manifest as inappropriate behavior. And if it's inappropriate behavior here, and the person that we're going to be dealing with, it's going to impact their state. So our behavior is going to impact their state. And before we know it, we're going to have their behavior almost mirroring our behavior. So it's very important that when we are on stage, when we are here to do our work, that our state is in a positive place, so that we can have positive impact on our behavior. And if our behavior is a positive one, then the chances are we're going to have a positive impact on the person that we're dealing with, their state. And likewise, their behavior is going to be a positive one as well. Because if not, we're going to be going around in this figure eight. So we need to find a way to break it somewhere. Yeah. So that's ensuring that we are in that good state. I know it's easy maybe for me to stand here and sprout it out now, but we just need to maintain that positive state when we are at work. Yeah. It says internal state or attitude affects behavior if you let it. So if we allow our internal state or attitude, you know, it could impact our behavior. So we just need to try to be on a positive page, and hopefully we have that positive behavior, and it gets the impact is positive on whoever it is that we're going to be dealing with, and their state of mind as well. So some communication strategies, some nonverbal communication strategies. It says in stressful situations, the use of nonverbal skills is very important. What might some of these nonverbal strategies be?
Kind of being relaxed if someone's being agitated with you and upset, if you can show that you're still relaxed rather than perhaps feeling upset or scared by it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that relax, open, relaxed attitude, gesture, it's maybe to have a good positive impact on whoever it is that we may be dealing with. Yeah, so that's good nonverbal. Any other nonverbal strategy that we could employ in a conflict situation? Any? Nonverbal strategy?
What your face is doing.
Huh?
What your face is doing.
What your face is doing?
Yeah. So obviously, was it frowning or smiling?
Yeah. So smile. Just smile, yeah? Yeah? Huh? What's that? What's that?
I said, did you want me to smile?
No. I'm just generalizing. I'm just saying smiling is a good nonverbal strategy to have. Yeah, because smiling, it's one of the best makeup on the market, you know. But we spend so little time on smiling. We invest a lot in the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But that simple free smile we ignore. You know, I remember walking in the wintertime, earlier wintertime in the dark. I was walking on this road outside there, and the Meadowlink bus was going to Queens, and the bus, of course, it was lit up in the dark, and I looked in the bus when it was passing by, and I was going the opposite direction the bus was going, and the faces in that bus, it was as if people were going to a funeral or coming from a funeral. You know, these people were going to work, you know, but the faces were like, you know, yeah. So that, yeah, smile, good, positive, nonverbal. Any other nonverbal gestures that we could employ in a conflict situation?
Give them a chair to sit.
Give them a chair to sit? Yeah, yeah. Or we could get down onto their level. If, say, they are in a chair, like if they are in a wheelchair, instead of us towering over them to speak, then we get to their level as well to have that conversation. Yeah, that's a good nonverbal strategy that we could employ as well. Some of what we have then, appreciation of personal space. So every now and again you hear about conflict, and when you get to understand what went on or what's going on, it's about people feeling that others are encroaching on their personal space. Yeah. So appreciation of personal space, approaching and communicating in view, off shoulder to reduce stress and anxiety. So in view, off shoulder, if I was to approach you, right now I'm in view and I'm kind of off shoulder to yourself. Yeah. If I was to approach you this way, it seemed to be warmer, it's more relaxed, rather than me coming directly in front of you and approaching you directly like this. It seemed to be more, it's deemed to be more aggressive. Yeah, so if we can approach in an off-shoulder, in-view approach, then it's a more welcoming approach. Yeah, non-threatening stance, body movement slow and smooth, avoid sudden jarred actions, appropriate eye contact. So again, it's about that having that eye contact. But we have eye contact and we have eye contact. Eye contact, I can eye contact, and I've recognized and I can move on. I can see. But you also have eye contact where I'm trying to stare you down. It's still eye contact, but that's kind of being intimidating. Yeah. While eye contact, recognize and we can move on. Yeah. So appropriate eye contact, facial expression. That's our smile coming into play. Assuring, confident voice tone. Acknowledging minimal encourages. So like the nodding of our head, shaking of our head. Again, it's some nonverbal way of communicating as well. Appropriate use of touch as reassurance. How how about touching? Is touching okay? How do you feel about touching?
Stay safe and just don't do it.
Huh?
You'll keep yourself out a lot more trouble if you just don't do it.
Yeah. That's a fair one. But I normally say if somebody extend an hand to me, then it's common decency that I respond and maybe offer and shake. But we just need to be mindful that not everybody. I think most human beings welcome touching, yeah, but they not welcome it from everybody else, yeah. Most human beings, or maybe all human beings, welcome touching from the near and dear. They welcome touching, yeah. So we shouldn't assume that everybody is welcoming my touch, yeah. If somebody offer, or then I'll reciprocate. I wouldn't necessarily wanting to be the one to initiate that and go and grab or to touch. But if somebody try to, something is happening and they want a shoulder to rest their head on, I would offer, they have initiated it and I would reciprocate, yeah. But I wouldn't pull them in to have a shoulder to lie on, if you know what I mean, yeah. So touching, and also culturally as well. Culturally, touching is not, it's not the done thing for everybody. So again, we just need to recognize that culturally, not every culture is going to be welcoming of touching, yeah, or touching from all and sundry, yeah. As I said, most people, if not everybody, when they go home, they welcome touch from everybody, children and the grandchildren and the dog and everybody else. But we shouldn't assume that it's always going to be welcome when they get out there. Yeah. So appropriate use of touch, and then we spoke about space. So with space, we have these spaces, what we call intimate space. So intimate space is where we have body contact up to about 18 inches. So that space is the intimate space. And in that intimate space, if we're ever likely to be hit, then it's in that intimate space that's usually happen. It can happen elsewhere, but usually it's in that intimate space that it occurs. Personal space, like you get on the bus, you get on the tram, you get in public transport, and you end up in spaces that sometimes you're sharing these spaces with people who maybe under normal circumstances you wouldn't be sharing these spaces with. We also have social space, like you go to a restaurant, a pub, and you're sharing space with people maybe under normal circumstances you wouldn't be necessarily sharing that space with. And you have your public space, like your parks and open festivals and that sort of thing. Yeah. But that intimate space is where we likely to get hit or damage likely to occur. Yeah. And people like the space. Just imagine for yourself, who might you allow in your intimate space voluntarily? Friends and family, children, yeah, family. Huh? Partner, yeah. Any? Doctor. Well, my doctor stay very far and do his diagnosis and that sort of thing. But I'll pick that up. But who might we allow in that or intimate space voluntarily? I mean, doctor, nurses almost not voluntarily, but things are happening, so they have to come in that space. But anybody else you can think of that you may want to allow in your intimate space? But guess what? This is just like that intimate space is not open. It's not like Tesco sales on, where shutters go up and all are welcome. We're saying our intimate space is for near and dear. That's what we're saying, because people come up with family and that sort of thing. Yeah. But as the doctor and the nurse, how do you get in your patient's space, intimate space, without causing them distress?
Explain the procedure before you do it.
Yeah, so you explain it.
Get consent
Get consent. So how are you going to do that?
by talking it
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. 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 So it's not just a matter of you just get behind the screen, take your clothes off, I'll see you in a minute. You know, we get some understanding, let them know what we're going to do, how we're going to do what we're going to do, and get that consent. It's not just about, and what I mean is, it's not just about explaining what we're going to do. It's also about them saying yes or no if you can go ahead. Yeah. So we get their consent in doing that. I mean, there are going to be times when consent is implied. Sometimes you're going to do say a blood pressure check, and the patient do like that, put the arm out without you even asking. It's almost like an implied consent. Yeah. There are going to be situations also where, say, an emergency in the emergency department, where somebody's going to have to advocate in that you maybe not in a position. When I say you, the patient might not be in a position to articulate that consent. We're going to have to just do what we have to do in that emergency situation. Yeah. And then our personal space, I would say, depending on whether we are rural or city folk. If we are rural or city folk, space is kind of dealt with in different ways as well. Rural folks like to have lots of space, while city folk are accustomed to being crowded, accustomed to getting on the bus, and people are over you, through you, and you name it. So again, depending if you are more rural or city, you like a bit more space. Yeah, and again, we need to recognize that when we're dealing with people as well. Yeah. So the benefits of maintaining space, it can be perceived as less confrontational. We can see possible warning or danger signs more easily. We can move away from possible physical attack more easily. We can also reduce tension and anxiety in both you and the subject. So maintaining space allows us to see what's going on. It also allows us to move away from possible conflict more easily. Yeah. So it's a good strategy to have up your sleeve. Yeah. It can also reduce tension, as I say, in both ourselves and the person that we're dealing with. Yeah. So proximity and nonverbal communication, in summary. Recognize when people are anxious that they need more personal space. Allow them to see physical exit. This will help them see emotional and rational exit to the issue. Do not block a person's exit. Use open gestures and positions. Stress and anxiety is increased if a person perceives that they are trapped, especially in that physical sense. Yeah. So space is a good weapon to have. Yeah. When people are anxious, they need more personal space. When people come to hospital, they're usually anxious. They're anxious for what's the test they're going to be doing. They're anxious for the results that they might be getting. Nobody come to admire the architecture. Oh, this was postgrad building built by. Nobody come to admire the architecture. They come because something is not so well, and they're coming to us for help and advice. Yeah. Lastly, we start looking at the law, legislation, and the use of force. So the objective for the use of force in any conflict situation is to preserve the safety of staff and innocent persons. And it says staff, first and foremost, deliberately. In that we need to ensure our health, safety, and welfare first and foremost. Because if we are not safe and fit and well, we are not going to be able to do what is being asked of us. I know as clinicians, we tend to see to everybody who comes through that door. We try to see to them, and sometimes not see to self. But we also need to kind of rethink that and make sure that we are safe and fit and well. Because if we are not safe and fit and well, chances are, we're going to be one of the casualties. Yeah. So the forces that we use preserve the safety of staff and innocent persons, and where appropriate, the subject themselves by establishing control. Because sometimes we may need to protect people from themselves, because people do harm themselves, and from time to time, we may have to intervene to prevent that happening. Yeah. So the criteria for the use of force, if force is ever deemed necessary, the criteria that need to be met is that force needs to be reasonable under all the circumstances. It needs to be proportionate to the seriousness of the crime. It needs to be absolutely necessary under the circumstances. and it also needs to have legal authority under established legislation. So if force was used, and there's a good chance if force was used, it might end up in court, or it could end up in court. If we can establish all 4 criteria, then I'll see you in court, mate. But if we can only establish 1 or 2 of these, then we're going to be on sticky wicket. Yeah? It might have been reasonable what we did. It might have been proportionate what we did. But when we start asking ourselves, was it absolutely necessary? Because the guys were running away. But we got the hammer and we whacked it and they whacked them in the head and they fell. Was that absolutely necessary? Because they were running away. They might have done whatever they did, but no, they were running away, so that threat isn't there anymore. And as such, it might not have been absolutely necessary. And then it might fail on legal grounds as well. Yeah. So we're going to look now at the legislation which gives authority to use force. So the Human Rights Act. So the Act requires staff to include certain considerations when using force. So it needs to be proportionate, it needs to be legal, it needs to be accountable, and it also needs to be necessary. Yeah. So the Human Rights Act say if force is ever being used, then we need to establish that it's proportionate, legal, accountable, and necessary. Let's a little segue to some definitions. Assault and battery. You might come across if you ever read any crime reporting in the newspaper, they might refer to assault and battery. And I remember in the old days, I used to believe an assault only happened when contact was made. That is what I used to believe in my old head. But this has put pay to that. Yeah. So an assault is an act in which a person directly, intentionally, or negligently causes the fear or apprehension of physical contact to another without consent. So an assault happened when a person directly, intentionally, or negligently causes the fear or apprehension of physical contact. So that's that fear of contact is deemed to be an assault. Yeah. Battery is an act in which a person directly, intentionally, or negligently causes physical contact to another without consent. So the battery bit is where physical contact is made without consent. Yeah. The next piece of legislation is the common law. And under common law it says if you have an honest held belief that you or another are in imminent danger, then you may use such force that is reasonable and necessary to avert that danger. So if you have an honest held belief that you or another are in imminent danger, then force may be used to avert that danger. Yeah? There's a little scenario then. So you were on duty, you stepped out to the ward or wherever you are, and when you walk back in, one of your colleagues is on the floor being battered by a patient, a known violent and aggressive patient is being battered by this patient. Your colleague is on the floor, unresponsive. And then your reaction, you grab a chair. I'm using chair because we have chairs abundant here. And you whack that person off and they fell to the side and you manage to pull your colleague away and you leg it out. Would we consider that, just going back to the criteria, would you say it was reasonable?
No.
You're saying no?
I said no.
You said no.
Not a chair. You can use different ways to restrain.
If you can.
If you can restrain them in a different way, because they say why you pick up a chair to get rid of that, to get that person off, when there's potentially other ways of getting them off. You would have training. You would have thought if you're with someone who's that violent, and why did you leave the ward on your own?
I just made up the scenario on the feet. Yeah, I hear you. I understand where you're going. But if you look at the legislation, say if you have an honest held belief that in this case it's not you now, it's a colleague, are in imminent danger, then you may use such force that is reasonable and necessary to avert that danger. This is what the law is saying. If you at that time feels that your colleague are in such danger that, if you don't intervene, then, Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that change
Yeah, no.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Does anybody disagree with... No? So it's about how we feel. I can almost say I'm sure. I don't like to make assumptions, but in this case, I can almost say I'm sure that nobody here would do that. But if we did do that, the law is there to back us. The law is saying if you have an honest held belief that you or another are in imminent danger, and force may be used to avert that danger. Yeah? So that's one piece of legislation, the common law. And then the next piece of legislation is Criminal Law Act. So here it says a person may use such force as is reasonable in the circumstances, in the prevention of a crime, or in the effecting or assisting in the lawful arrest of offenders or suspected offenders or of persons unlawfully at large. So it's a whole mouthful. So force may be used to prevent a crime or helping or assisting arresting someone. Yeah? Is that sunk in? So I'm going to give you a scenario. And this one is part true and part I made up. Yeah? So this one, there was an incident in Nottingham City Centre and a young lad got stabbed. He was taken to QMC Emergency Department for treatment. And the people who were involved in the altercation, they heard that this guy is being treated in a QMC. And they went down there because they want to finish off this job. You know, and they turned up at QMC. That bit did happen. Next bit I'm just gonna color it a bit for the imagination, yeah? So they turn up, a group of them turn up in ED, and the police officer on duty approached them, and some of them legged it. And one guy, you know, big on wanting to have it some, and he wasn't backing down. He was still coming forward to do some damage. Anyway, the police officer tackled him, you know, trying to apprehend him. And they tussled and they ended on the floor. And the police officer was having difficulty apprehending this guy, you know, because he took his cuff out and trying to put them on, but he was having difficulty. And we came along and saw what was happening. And we got involved and held the guy and supported the police officer to put them cuffs on. Would you consider that to have been reasonable in doing something like that? Yeah. 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 Again, it's not something that happens every day, but it's something that sometimes we may encounter. I mean, I talk about it in almost like trivia here and now, but who knows? Tomorrow when you go back to wherever you're going to go do what you have to do, you're going to say, oh, you know, did Luxie make that one up for me then, or something, you know? But we never know. Yeah. So yeah, I would consider it under this piece of legislation because here you're trying to support somebody in the apprehension of a criminal here. Yeah. And I would consider that reasonable. And I'm sure. Well, I say I'm sure. I'm not sure. But if we can justify what we did in a court setting, hopefully we would have been on the winning side. Yeah. European law on human rights also give authority to use force. Article 2 of the Human Rights Act talks about the right to life. Article 3 looks at prohibition of torture, and Article 5 looks at the right to liberty and security. So there's lots of legislation there abound as to force, if force is ever deemed necessary in a conflict situation. Yeah, because there are times, as I said, it's not every day that these things happen, but if or when they ever do happen, we just need to be rest assured that there are legislation there that backs up what we're doing. It's not like we're doing something that's not being backed up by legal legislation. Yeah. I'm not going to do the scenarios tonight. I think we've looked at 2 scenarios. I think that's enough for one day. So I was going to go to the report writing. So the report writing, if force is ever used in conflict, then it's very imperative that we make sure that we document well. Because in documenting the use of force, we need to remember that it may be used as evidence in court. And court, if the incident happened today, court is not normally tomorrow, or the day after, or the week after, or even the month after. Sometimes it's months before court. Sometimes it's years before court. So we just need to ensure that we document what happened well. Yeah. So we need to set the scene, on arrival at the scene. How did we arrive? How did the other person that we were dealing with arrive? How the incident developed? Because what we need to be doing is almost coloring the situation for somebody who is not there, and we're trying to paint a picture as to what happened on the day. Yeah. So how the incident developed, the approach, how did they approach? How did we approach? The environment in which it occurred. Was it an open waiting area? Was it in a side room somewhere? Yeah. The people you're dealing with, who were they? Any potential warning or danger sign that we might have spotted. Other staff present at the incident. So if there was any other staff present at the incident, then again, staff can be very valuable witnesses. And what we would like to do is ensure that we capture a witness statement from any other colleague that might have been present. And what we don't want to happen is that our colleagues go away, read about it in the evening newspaper, and based on what they read about, they use that as a basis for their witness statement, or they see it on the evening news, and again, based on that, they use that as the basis for their witness statement. If they're there, we want to get the witness statement in as soon as we can, as best as we can. Yeah, and also that extends to any other third-party witnesses. We want to ensure that we get that witness statement in as early as we can. Yeah, we don't want people going away, reading about it, or having a think about it, and then they start coloring it, something that didn't happen. You know, if they're there, get the statement in as soon as we can. Yeah, and then hopefully it should lead to a successful resolution of whatever the problem might have been. Yeah. Most of us are going to be or are members of trade unions, and with trade union membership comes legal support. So all trade unions have a legal element to them. So if force is used in a conflict situation, then we have legal support via our trade union membership if we are members of trade unions. But also the trust also has a legal department, and if force is used, then the trust is there again as a additional support as well. So it's not like we're going to be on our own and left to our own devices. Yeah, we're going to have some support going forward, and hopefully it will lead to successful resolution or whatever the situation may be. Yeah. Any questions? I promised Natalie 4 o'clock. It's 2 minutes past. I know it's a strange setting, but I hope that anyway you have a productive, safe, and this all that conflict resolution that you've been through. You never have to deploy any of it, but just in case, you can just fall back on 1 or 2 elements of what we did today. Just in case that ever happened. As I say, I hope it never happened. I've been here a while. I've never had it, so hopefully. Same for yourselves. Yeah, and have a good one.